We were asked by a local bar owner to be a part of a series in the newspaper called People in Your Neighborhood, highlighting immigrants, frats and sororities, and gays, and obviously we were the gay part of the story. I was nervous, but decided to do the article. I realized what would happen if we were in it. But I realized the irony of living my life out loud at my job in my own small city, and that I lived a lie that everyone I knew and loved back home. And I think it was time to come clean. And we were trying hard to live a normal life and bring stability to our world, as it was rocked at that point in time by one friend after another dying of AIDS. In the midst of all of that, the article seemed kind of insignificant until it hit the newsstands. Because it wasn't just a simple article. It was "Local Gay" screamed across the front line, front page above the fold, a picture of me, Joel, and our Dalmatian Gertrude. My mother was a mess. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. At Fellowship Baptist Church that Sunday morning, the newspaper was held high from the pulpit, and fire and brimstone rained down, and countless prayers were said for my soul. My mother quietly showed my father the newspaper, and he retired to the bedroom, where she later found it torn in pieces on the floor. And that day, my father disowned me, and for 6 years, we didn't speak. Hate mail came to the house, our cars were egged, and the following Christmas, I got a lovely Christmas card from my aunt that included a 3-page letter explaining why I was doomed to eternal damnation. The letter ended nicely, though. It said, "Have a great Christmas. Love, Aunt Pat and Uncle Tim." Despite all the bad stuff, for the first time in my life, I felt free. I felt liberated. I felt like I had actually finally taken a stand, exposed myself, and let loose of a bunch of torment I lived with my entire life. Consciously, I decided that being gay would not hold me back, despite what my mother said. I just simply wouldn't allow it. I officially, at that point in time, threw off the last threads of fundamentalism that clung to my back, and I set on a new spiritual path. I found a church that was open and affirming, and helped set me back up on a spiritual foundation, and started to move my life forward. I stayed in that church for many, many years, and I ran as an openly gay member of the church council and was elected. Since that time, life has changed radically. I look back now to where I was, it's really different, and time has healed most wounds. I left New York and moved to California, which some days I think was crazy. I've changed careers and catapulted my life in a new direction, and being gay isn't really what defines my life, it's just a small facet of what makes me me, it is. We don't have any children, but we do have two of the most adorable Jack Russell Terriers. And we live in a home that Brett and I have actually created for ourselves in our own way, by our rules. My dad and I are closer than we've ever been. And he walked me down this aisle when I got married, and he hugged me. He hugged me, he kissed me, he told me he loved me, and he passed me off to the man who I married that day. And he still to this day calls the house once a week and he says, "Tell Brent I love him." Almost 3 years later, I was able to sit out front with a rabbi in Madison and marry my husband again in the eyes of the state. For someone like me who makes the laws, enforces the laws, and moves the laws, it was an amazing time. And I recognize that day that we have a great life and Spirit really has taken care of us. But I've learned a few things along the way. I just want to share some of my thoughts on that. First, I believe society evolves, and so do our perceptions. I mean, society evolved that day when a bunch of drag queens locked police officers in the Stonewall Inn and started the civil rights riots. And 10 years ago, not long ago, society once again changed when Matthew Shepard was left to die in a fence in Laramie. You can't go anywhere without seeing gays or lesbians or references. We're on TV left and right. We've gained a lot, but we have a lot to go. And we have a lot to represent to the world, and that's why we have to first start by defeating Prop 8 in November. I've learned that I'm gay by God's design. I was born this way with all the blessings of Spirit, and my mandate is to speak the truth as loudly as I can, not only in my words, but as my actions. I do believe that I was born to make manifest the glory of the God that runs through the blood in my veins, and that when I'm gone, hopefully the world will be a better place. And I've learned that faith evolves, and it's not static like how I was once taught. The rule was the rule, the law was the law, and you lived by it or you died by it. I believe in one truth and many paths to get there. There's not, I can't think of any one of us that I've talked to in my time in the LGBT community who at some point hasn't had a spiritual scar across their back from the church of the faith they were raised in or not raised in. Instead of finding new paths, often we reject our faith altogether. And we need to find the good places like Pilgrim and like Christ the King. And we have to reach out to people to make sure that when they're struggling through that, they have a place to go and be safe. Most of my family have grappled with their own spiritual path in terms of my coming out, and they try still to this day to reconcile their faith with their love for me. Some of my family still to this day gather at prayer meeting on Wednesday night at Fellowship Baptist Church, and they pray for me to be delivered into the arms of a good Christian woman. But I think they're beginning to realize that when you keep asking God for something over and over and over again, and he or she doesn't answer, that maybe you got your answer. And with that, I'm saying that God really does still speak, and I pray that all of us sit back and take the time to listen to what he or she has to say. Thanks.